breaking news. Let's welcome back in our Premier League insider, David Ornstein. And I want to start with Evan Ferguson, David, joining West Ham from Brighton. Tell us more.
Yeah, that is a done deal. And it's one that had been in the offing for a few days because Evan Ferguson is one of the few really in-demand strikers on the market. His stock was high just a year or so ago at Brighton and Hove Albion. People were talking about if he was going to leave, potentially being a £100 million player. Well, with injury and a loss of form, his value has dipped, but it hasn't stopped the interest in him. There were clubs such as Arsenal who took a look at him. Everton, Fulham, Bournemouth wanted to loan him. But West Ham was so heavily linked because of the fact that they have had an injury crisis, the likes of Bowen and Antonio, Nicholas Füllkrug too. And also that Graham Potter, the former Brighton manager, is now in charge of West Ham and knows Evan Ferguson really well. So they pushed so hard to get this done. At one point, it looked like it might have been a permanent, but ultimately it ended up as a straight loan, no option to buy, and West Ham covering all of Evan Ferguson's salary at Brighton. And Brighton will hope he goes there and excels at the London Stadium in the team that you saw tonight, who do need goals, and then goes back to Brighton and continues to flourish there as he was doing before this ankle injury, which has really set him back. And maybe even if it comes to it, gets sold in the future by rebuilding his value back to where it was before. It would be typical of Brighton if they managed to do that. For his purposes, Evan Ferguson, he'll just want to get scoring and playing again because it hasn't been the case recently. He's an Ireland international. He's still such a young man with so much ahead of him. And that's why he was in demand. He was one of the most talked about players coming into deadline day. It wasn't definitely clear that he would be moving because of this ankle injury. His suitors had reservations. He took a while to get back into full training. And I don't think he is in perfect condition just yet. But when he gets there, there is a real talent and player that West Ham have managed to obtain. And they'll hope that it works out to their benefits for the rest of the season. They need those goals, and he needs to hit his stride again. So Evan Ferguson to West Ham United from Brighton on a straight loan deal. It's done.
OK, well, it was Chelsea who managed to get the better of West Ham today. Speaking of Chelsea, Axel Disasi set to be leaving, moving to Villa, who are really sort of bolstering their squad right now.
Axel Disasi was another name, Anna, who was being talked about across the industry because Chelsea were willing to do business for him. One of many high-profile signings that Chelsea have made in the last couple of years, but he's fallen out of favour. And also having a number of notable admirers, given that that position, central defence, is one that many clubs want to fill. And so the team that came forward for him initially was Aston Villa. That's a club that he was very enthusiastic about joining, agreed personal terms pretty quickly. But the two clubs struggled to agree on a deal themselves. I think it's fair to say that Chelsea saw Aston Villa as a competitor for a Champions League qualification place this season. And so if they were going to take him off their hands, they were going to have to pay a pretty penny for it. It would have ideally for Chelsea been a permanent deal and at quite some value, which Aston Villa were not prepared to pay. And then even if it was going to be a loan deal, it seemed that Chelsea were asking from Villa more than they would be asking from other clubs. That saw this situation collapse yesterday. Suddenly Tottenham appeared on the scene and they agreed a deal with Chelsea for a loan fee in the region of £5 million. But Disasi didn't seem to be convinced about it initially. Then I think when he realised Villa wasn't going to happen, he was open to the idea of Tottenham. And then ultimately Tottenham decided to go away from it. And they made a bid for Mark Gehi of Crystal Palace, around £70 million that was rejected. And in the end, it came full circle with the likes of Wolves and others looking into it. Villa got their way. And tonight they've agreed a deal worth around £5 million in a loan fee. It's a straight loan, no option to buy. And what Chelsea will hope is Disasi goes and plays there. He rediscovers his form. He rebuilds his value. He goes back to Chelsea, not too dissimilar to Ferguson, plays well for Chelsea, or gets sold for a decent value in the summer. So Aston Villa will be delighted with that because they needed to fill the spot left by Diego Carlos. And they've got it in Axel Disasi. He leaves Chelsea for Aston Villa on a straight loan until the end of the season.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And if you want even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.